The Green Mile is widely regarded as one of the most emotionally powerful films ever made, but its journey to the screen was far from guaranteed, and its storytelling is deeper than many viewers realize. After The Shawshank Redemption, another Stephen King prison adaptation, underperformed at the box office despite later becoming a classic, Hollywood studios were skeptical about investing in a similar project. Director Frank Darabont, who had helmed Shawshank, was hesitant to take on another King prison drama, knowing the commercial risks. Studios balked at the film's 3-hour runtime, believing audiences wouldn't sit through such a long and somber story set on death row. But the involvement of Tom Hanks, then at the peak of his career following Forrest Gump and Saving Private Ryan, was a turning point. His commitment gave the film the credibility it needed, and Darabont refused to compromise on the runtime, insisting that the story needed every minute to unfold properly. That level of integrity mirrored the care put into the film's thematic depth. The Green Mile isn't just a tearjerker, it's a layered meditation on justice, compassion, and the supernatural. Hidden throughout the film are recurring symbols that enhance its emotional weight. The color green, for instance, appears not only in the floor of the death row block, but in the execution chamber curtains, a soaked sponge, and the eerie gleam in characters' eyes during key moments. These visuals quietly signal death, transition, and spiritual reckoning. Even more powerful is the film's religious symbolism. John Coffey, with the initials JC, performs miracles, absorbs pain, and ultimately sacrifices himself, echoing Christ-like imagery. When he's unshackled before his execution, it mirrors Jesus being taken from the cross. Weather is used as emotional shorthand too. Storms accompany chaos, while Coffey's peaceful execution takes place on a serene moonlit night, and sunlight finally appears in the epilogue, signaling resolution. Together, these hidden layers, combined with the film's risky, uncompromising production, make The Green Mile much more than a supernatural prison tale. It's a profound story about moral awakening, spiritual depth, and the power of choosing compassion, even in a system built for punishment. That it almost never made it to theaters makes its impact all the more remarkable. One of the most overlooked reasons The Green Mile resonates so deeply with audiences is the extraordinary level of realism and emotional authenticity achieved by both its production design and the dedication of its cast. Rather than filming in an actual prison, the filmmakers made the bold choice to construct an entirely custom-built death row set, a decision that paid off in both atmosphere and performance. Designed by Oscar-winning production designer Terrence Marsh, the set was crafted with historical accuracy down to the smallest details. The infamous green linoleum that inspired the film's title matched the exact shade used in southern prisons during the 1930s, and even the electrical wiring and light fixtures were period correct. Most chilling of all was Old Sparky, a fully functional electric chair replica capable of producing smoke, lights, and realistic sound effects. Special effects coordinator Charles Gibson ensured that every execution scene felt disturbingly real, amplifying the emotional intensity for both the audience and the actors. To deepen this realism, director Frank Darabont had the cast spend an entire afternoon on the set in silence, fully immersed in character. Guards stood at their posts, prisoners sat in their cells, and not a word was spoken. This exercise forced the actors to internalize the monotony, tension, and emotional weight of death row life, allowing those feelings to surface naturally in their performances. Complementing the physical authenticity of the set was the remarkable emotional preparation of the cast. Each actor developed intricate personal backstories for their characters, details never explicitly stated on screen, but deeply influential to their portrayals. Tom Hanks imagined Paul Edgecombe as a World War I veteran, a man shaped by trauma and duty, which informed his sense of fairness and his horror at cruelty. Michael Clark Duncan took a different approach, visiting hospitals and observing patients in need of care to capture the gentle vulnerability of John Coffey. His posture, tone, and body language changed subtly between moments of power and moments of childlike innocence. Doug Hutchison, who played the sadistic Percy Wetmore, based his performance on a childhood bully, adding a disturbingly real undercurrent to his character's cruelty. Together, these efforts created a world that felt lived in and emotionally charged. making the Green Mile as hauntingly human as it is visually unforgettable. Beneath its supernatural premise and emotional storytelling, the Green Mile is profoundly rooted in religious symbolism and moral introspection. At the center of these themes is John Coffey, a character who transcends the role of a wrongly accused man on death row and instead emerges as a deeply spiritual, Christ-like figure. His initials JC are no accident. He heals with touch, absorbs others' pain, performs miracles, and ultimately sacrifices himself for the sins of others. His presence challenges the moral compass of those around him, especially the guards tasked with overseeing his fate. Coffey's most iconic moments echo biblical imagery. His execution, for example, is portrayed with reverence and visual cues that mirror the crucifixion of Christ. When the guards remove his chains just before his death, it resembles Christ being taken down from the cross. His final words, "You be still," resonate like a passage from Scripture, calling to mind the biblical themes of surrender, peace, and trust in divine will. The moment transforms his death from an unjust punishment into a spiritual event, a moment of transcendence that offers not just physical release, but emotional absolution for the men forced to carry it out. But perhaps one of the most unexpectedly profound symbols in the film is a small, seemingly insignificant mouse, Mr. Jingles. At first glance, he appears to serve as comic relief or a quirky character detail. However, Mr. Jingles plays a far more important role. He is the film's moral litmus test. The way each character responds to this vulnerable creature silently reveals their ethical standing, long before they face the far more complex moral dilemma of John Coffey's fate. Delacroix, despite his past crimes, shows deep tenderness and affection for Mr. Jingles, suggesting a capacity for redemption. Percy Wetmore, by contrast, cruelly attempts to kill the mouse for no reason other than power and malice. Even Paul Edgecombe begins indifferent to the creature, but ultimately chooses to protect it, foreshadowing his later choice to honor Coffey's dignity. Mr. Jingles functions as a miniature parallel to Coffey himself, a harmless, gentle being who asks nothing, yet becomes a target of cruelty or kindness based solely on the hearts of those around him. Together, these layered religious and moral elements elevate the Green Mile far beyond a conventional prison drama. They challenge viewers to examine their own beliefs about justice, compassion, and the sacredness of life, even in its most humble forms. One of the most subtly powerful storytelling tools in the Green Mile is its use of weather to reflect the emotional and moral climate of the character's journey. Far from being a mere backdrop, the film's atmospheric shifts are carefully aligned with the emotional tone of key scenes. During moments of chaos and injustice, such as Delacroix's botched execution, the weather outside the prison becomes violent and turbulent, with thunderstorms mirroring the horror and moral disarray occurring within. In contrast, when moments of clarity, peace, or acceptance take place, the weather becomes still, even beautiful. John Coffey's execution, arguably the film's most heartbreaking moment, occurs under a calm, moonlit sky. This serene atmosphere is not accidental. It reflects Coffey's peaceful acceptance of his fate and the guards' somber realization of the injustice they are participating in. The weather's symbolism culminates in the film's epilogue. After Paul has carried the weight of Coffey's death for decades, he finally tells his story. It's only then, after years of moral reflection and emotional burden, that we see true sunlight for the first time. The bright, clear day at Coffey's grave serves as a visual metaphor for release, truth, and emotional resolution. It's as if nature itself has been holding its breath through the story, waiting for Paul to unburden his soul before allowing light to return. Yet, as powerful as the supernatural elements and atmospheric cues are, the Green Mile's most profound miracle isn't John Coffey's ability to heal, it's the moral transformation he inspires. At the film's start, the guards are largely mechanical in their duties, performing executions with routine detachment. But Coffey's quiet wisdom, innocence, and suffering shake them to their core. His presence forces them to confront the brutal realities of the system they uphold. Paul, in particular, evolves from a dutiful warden to a man tormented by conscience, questioning the justice of executing a man he now knows to be innocent. This shift from passive complicity to active moral reckoning is the film's true miracle. Coffey doesn't just cure illness, he awakens human decency in those around him. He makes them feel, reflect, and ultimately change. That's the miracle that endures after the credits roll. Not magic or mystery, but the undeniable power of conscience awakened. And in a world defined by rigid systems and quiet cruelty, the courage to question, to feel, and to change is the most extraordinary transformation of all. One of the most critical elements that gives The Green Mile its lasting emotional impact is the epilogue, featuring an elderly Paul Edgecombe, still alive decades after the events at Cold Mountain Penitentiary. Yet, this powerful final act almost didn't make it into the film. Studio executives believed that the story should end with John Coffey's execution, arguing that the film was already too long and that the epilogue added unnecessary runtime. But director Frank Darabont strongly disagreed. He fought to preserve the scenes showing Paul as an old man in a nursing home, reflecting on the past, because they encapsulated the film's central themes of guilt, memory, and the inescapable cost of moral compromise. Without that ending, the story would have closed on a note of tragic finality. Powerful, yes, but incomplete. The epilogue reframes the entire film. It reveals that Paul has lived an extraordinarily long life, a supernatural byproduct of Coffey's healing touch, and that he's been carrying the emotional weight of Coffey's unjust execution ever since. This haunting longevity becomes a kind of penance, a reminder that some choices, even when made under pressure, leave permanent marks on the soul. Paul's long life is not a blessing, but a burden. It's through this lens that the audience truly understands the depth of his sorrow, the magnitude of what was lost, and the personal toll of participating in injustice, even reluctantly. This emotional resolution elevates The Green Mile from a supernatural tragedy to a profound moral meditation. Equally integral to the film's success was the casting of Michael Clarke Duncan as John Coffey, a performance that very nearly didn't happen. At the time, Duncan was a relatively unknown actor, having worked mostly as a bodyguard and appearing in small, physically imposing roles. He lacked formal acting experience and almost didn't audition, believing he wasn't actor enough for such a complex role. It was only with the encouragement of his manager and guidance from acting coach Larry Moss that he decided to try. Even then, it was Tom Hanks who became a mentor on set, helping Duncan build confidence and navigate the emotionally demanding role. When Duncan delivered Coffey's now iconic line, "I'm tired, boss," tired of people being ugly to each other, his raw vulnerability left a lasting impression. Critics and audiences were stunned. His performance earned him an Academy Award nomination and transformed him from a background figure into a beloved Hollywood talent. It was a once-in-a-lifetime performance, one that gave The Green Mile its soul.